Welcome to Social Science is the Basic podcast with Professor Mohtar Masud.
Good morning. Welcome to the second program of the podcast for Social Science is the Basic. Like I mentioned in the first program, this is part of the course titled Social Sciences the Basic, and we are now talking about geography, geopolitics, and its relevance to international relations. Okay. The question is, why do we need to use geographic ideas to study IR? Okay. Why IR students need knowledge about geography, need geographic information, ideas, concepts, okay, to study IR. So that's the point. Now, again, why geography? Okay, the ideas here is that we need to study geography because location affects the way people live. The main concept in geography is space or location. In political theory, definition of the state has two aspects. Okay, so if you are talking about what is state, first, state is an agent that exercises power through a set of central political institutions. Okay, this first part is the subject of political science. Okay, especially political science that deals with political institution, government, and decision-making process and the like. The second aspect of the state, according to the political theory, is the spatial demarcation of the territory within which the state exercises its power. So the state is not flying a thing, State is located in certain area. Okay. So the second aspect is very important for international relations because the state is always located somewhere, and that's the basic subject of geography. The world we live in happens to be diversified, highly partitioned space. So you have space for Malaysia, space for Indonesia, space for the Philippines, space for other countries, And the surface of the earth is partitioned in great many ways. Politically, so you have political system of Malaysia, and political system of Vietnam. So we are divided by the way we do politics, okay? And physically, so you have the boundaries. Vietnam and Cambodia, are separated by certain boundaries. So is with others. Also, we are partitioned in terms of economic, because different country has a different way of doing in economics, and that's why we are differentiated in economy. We are also, like we said, we talked in the first program, we are also differentiated culturally. So in terms of culture, we are different to each other. Now, international relation is based on the idea of political division. So we can say that political division are the raison d'etre of international relations. The variety of different parts of the Earth's surface is the raison d'etre of geography. So, IR and geography is different in the sense that IR talking about political division, differences between Indonesia and Malaysia and the Philippines and Vietnam, and geography talk about the different Earth surface, because Malaysia occupy one area, Indonesia occupy another area, so does with the Philippines and others. Okay, that's the issue. The Earth surface is partitioned, differentiated. If the Earth were uniform, if the Earth just like a billiard ball, there probably would not be any such science as geography. You don't need geography because everything on surface of the Earth's surface is the same. And IR would be very simple, because everything is the same. But that's not the case. Because the Earth is not uniform geologically, it's not uniform geophysically, botanically, or economically, and in fact in every part of the world, every part of the Earth is different, then we need geography. Geographical studies are useful because the fact that the Earth is differentiated. Okay, that's why we need to study geography. In other words, the physical Earth is a basic datum of IR study. Every nation state has a territorial base, a spatial section of the Earth's surface, because Indonesia is located between the northern tip of Sumatra, and the eastern we have the eastern tip of Papua. So that's the idea, because there is no territory, no nation state. Okay, so territory is one of the absolute requisite of statehood. In international transactions, the factors of location, space, and distance between interacting parties have been very significant. That's why we have the maxim, power is local. Political demands are projected through space from one location to another upon the Earth's surface. Okay, that's the idea, the reason, the argument about the importance of geography. And I have some quotes on the value of geography by Tim Marshall, who wrote a book called Prisoners of Geography. The landscape imprisons our leader, giving them fewer choices and less room to maneuver than we might think. So the idea is that power of the leaders is always constrained, by the landscape where the power relations are taking place. The second quotation is also by Tim Marshall. The land on which we live has always shaped us. The choices of those who live, the 7 billion inhabitants of this planet, will always be shaped by the rivers, mountains, desert, lakes, and seas that constrains us all. I would like to emphasize this because this way the idea that we want to use to answer why IR students need to study geography, because for IR geography is very important. Not in terms of determining things, but in terms of constraining what happened on the surface of the Earth. An example of geographical analysis is the one that when you ask why some countries have more power, others do not. Okay, why Russia and United States and China got more power, okay, compared to the other. The reason the causal analysis refer to the unevenly distributed features of the physical Earth, the one that I mentioned before. So, why China is much more powerful than the others? Because the feature of the physical Earth where China is located. Okay. Also, why United States is much more powerful than the others? The same applies to United States, because United States got more in terms of the physical Earth. Okay. So, geopolitical hypothesis purport to explain and to predict geographical distribution of political power and influence by reference to the structure of the Earth's surface and other phenomena related to it. Okay. Well, many predictions of geopolitical scholar often fail, and we have studies from people who prove that geopolitical theory not proven. That's it. The issue is, this is very popular among analysts. Okay, so this the problem with us when we talk about geopolitics, because so many criticize, but we later come to this issue. Next, I will talk about geographical perspective. It is assumed that the way we perceive things determines our way of going about it. Look at the map. The most important map that we use in our daily activities do not necessarily tell us the truth, because map depends on the perspective of the creator. Okay. Like here, I will show you the map of the Earth, map of the world, created by people named Mercator. That's why it's called Mercator projection. Okay. This is not really true, because the way you project that, the Earth is what you call the globe, is shaped like ball. Okay. Now, when you have a ball and you try to project it in a flat picture, somehow you have to change the picture. So the problem with Mercator projection is that it drastically distorts the size and shape of object approaching the poles, either North Pole or South Pole. Like I said, because this is like a ball, and you cut it up and then make into a flat picture, then somehow you distort the reality. Okay, that's why you see on the map that Alaska is nearly as large as the continental United States. That's not true in reality. Greenland is roughly the same size as Africa. Also, this is not true. Europe, excluding Russia, is only a bit larger than South America. Antarctica dwarfs all the continent. So, the Antarctica, the South Pole, much bigger than the other. India, smaller than in reality, and Canada is bigger than in reality. This is the issue. This is the problem with Mercator projection. But we use it because this is the easiest way to depict, to imagine where United States is, where India, located, and those others. Okay. But then but I would like to reiterate what I said before. Map depends on the perspective of the creator. Okay. And another map that I would like to show you is map about the north, quote unquote, and the south, quote unquote. This is not, as you see this picture, this is not really north and south, because Australia, that's a down, well, Australia is called down south, right? Down south. But here in the picture, Australia is considered north. Okay. And you see that the South Korea is part of the OECD. That's why South Korea is part of the North. But North Korea is part of the South. Okay, this is confusing for us, but that's the way it is. Because whenever you talk in media, in you know, any newspaper talking about the North, you know, when you read the word the North, what you imagine is including Australia and New Zealand might be, and South Korea, which is in reality is not really located at the northern part. Okay, but this is the north and south is not really a physical thing. North and south is a name given to those political division. So this is not a physical division. This is a political division. You are not only because you are located at the northern part, but because you ideologically closer to those located in the north. Also, I have here another map. This is describing the core, okay, states, and the periphery, quote unquote, core, quote unquote, and periphery, quote unquote. At the core, you have all those OECD countries, Anglo-American, you know, you have Canada, United States, you have Western Europe, you have Japan, and others. So whenever you see that this is a core country, center countries, okay, and you have in your mind, this is about those Europe, Western Europe, Eastern Asia, and Northern America, and some part of Pacific. Okay, so again, this is not a physical division. This is not a physical partition. This is a political or developmental kind of division. Another picture about this is there's a map prepared by Samuel P. Huntington when he want to portray the word conflict in terms of civilization. Well, he has the Mercator projection, but then you don't go by country, you go by civilization. So you have United States, Canada, British, and some part of Northern Europe. It's called Anglo-Saxon, and Australia, okay, Anglo-Saxon. And then you have part of Latin America, almost all, and Quebec, and southern part of Europe, and the Philippines. That's the Iberian Hispanic civilization. Iberian Hispanic Catholic, you know, civilization. And then you have red. Well, of course, this is those related to the communist ideology. And the yellow is for China, Japan, and Korea. What about us? We are part of what they call Islamistan, something like that, you know. It spanned from the western tip of Africa and the eastern tip of Indonesia. Okay, all is green with green color there. The black include most of Africa, all of Papua, part of southern India, and the island in the Central America, and the Latin America. Okay, this is Huntington. The way he portrayed the world in order to explain that after ideology is no longer important in determining international conflict, he projected that in the future conflict must come from conflict between civilization. So again, I would like to give you, this is the last example in this. This is about the about Soviet Union and United States, portrayed as a neighbor. For a very long time, our imagination is that United States is so different from United Soviet Socialist Republic, the USSR. They are separate, but the separation mostly on ideology. In terms of geography, they are not separated, because they are separated only a very narrow strait, Bering Strait. So for those who want to move United States, American and Russian people to come together, they would like to use this. This is a map that tells you that we are neighbors anyway. Okay, why we are so hateful to each other? In fact, we are neighbors. This is for peaceful purposes. This is created by activists to show that in terms of geography, we are supposed to be neighbor and we are supposed to be peaceful. That's the idea about geography and the perspective of using geography to convey your ideas by using map. And IR students need to do this because IR is basically international relation between nation state, which is located somewhere on the earth. Okay, that's the idea. Now I move to what is it about the geopolitics. Okay, we have several definitions, and I let you know several definitions, and I will mention some of them. One of the definitions said that geopolitics is the study of the influence of geographical factors on state behavior. Okay. How location, where Indonesia located, okay, climate, okay, natural resources, population, and physical terrain, all of these are geographical factors determine a state's foreign policy option and its position in the hierarchy of states, So the hierarchy of whether you are at the top of the hierarchy or the lowest rank in the hierarchy, it depends on your geographical factors. Okay, so geography is the independent variable, and political behavior and political phenomena is the dependent variable. This is the idea. The second, scholar who defines says something like this: geopolitics looks at the ways in which international affairs can be understood through geographical factors, not just the physical landscape like natural barriers or mountain connection, between river networks, but also climate, demographic, cultural region, and the most important recently is the access to natural resources. If you have an access to natural resources like Saudi Arabia, you will be happy because you will have, you will have influence on those who need natural resources. Okay, so geopolitics looks at the ways in which international affairs can be understood through geographical factors. If you look at the geographical factors, you can understand the behavior of countries. Okay, you will understand the behavior of Indonesia if you look at the geographic factors. Okay. Another definition said that the study geopolitics is the study of the impacts of certain geographic factors such as states and region position and location, resources, topography, distance, etc. on state foreign policy and action. As an aid to statecraft and to theory. Okay. So we have several definitions. I would like you to read it, to understand it, and then make your own conclusion. Another definition says that the study of geopolitics, the study of relationship between demography, economics, environment, geography, and politics. Okay. This is also a study of about how those relationships influence countries' foreign policy and countries' national security policy. And this is, I mentioned the name of the scholar, and you will see that. The last definition that I have here says that geopolitics is the analysis of the relationship between geographical facts on the one hand and international politics on the other. The geographical facts like natural features, like rivers, mountains, ocean, along with elements of human and political geography such as national boundary, trade network, concentration, and economic or military power, all of those can affect international politics. Making foreign policy while ignoring geopolitical factors in world politics is like trying to play chess without noticing the configuration of the board and the power of the pieces. And if you are not aware of that, if you do not know the function of the king, of the rook, or the bishop, the queen, and the knight, and the pawn, and how do they play the rules, then you will not get any understanding of the game of chess. Okay. That's the idea. So geopolitics is very important in that sense, because if you forgot, if you ignore geopolitics, you will not get understanding fully about the world politics. So what are the conditions for geopolitics? When geopolitics play out? Geopolitics are at play when actors such as political leaders, countries, organizations, and corporations assess how their action would affect other political leaders, countries, organizations, and corporations. Geopolitics is not a new phenomenon in politics, because very long time leaders always attempt to anticipate the reaction of others. Whenever they do something, they expect, they try to anticipate what others will react. Like when you play chess, when you move your king, you expect, you anticipate, after you anticipate the reaction of others. So this is the game of chess that is really played out in geopolitics. Okay. Geopolitics is based on certain assumptions. Okay. The most important assumption is that in the system of causes which determine the parameter of politics, geography is the ultimate cause. Whatever the cause that you see, whatever the cause of international politics that you see, in the end, it was geography is the ultimate cause. A theory about international behavior necessarily must face geography within a central place in the conceptual scheme of theoretical analysis. Whatever your theory, according to the scholar of geopolitics, the center of your independent variable must relate to geography. How do scholars study geopolitics? Okay. There are two strands, two types of geopolitics. The first is classical geopolitics, and the second is critical geopolitics. I don't want to discuss this longer because it's enough for us to say that here in this class we will discuss classical geopolitics. So what is classical geopolitics then? This is a geopolitics that is methodologically traditionalist, interpret the roles played by geography, like nature resources and transportation, in formulating and implementing strategies. Okay. So whenever countries formulate strategies and implement strategies in terms of national, international, political, economic, diplomatic, and military strategy, they need to consider geographic factors. Okay, that's the classical geopolitics. Critical geopolitics does not believe that. Critical geopolitics mentions that geographical knowledge claims are not neutral or not objective. Geographic facts do not simply influence international politics. They are interpreted for the purpose of pursuing certain political interests. Classical geopolitics is pseudoscience that is politicized to support certain power relations. Critical geopolitics analyzes discourses of geography in international theory and practice to examine the power relations supported by such representation. We don't discuss critical geopolitics here because our purpose now is to relate what happened in the geographical dimension and the political dimension in the international relations. Okay, that's the idea of emphasizing on classical geopolitics. So we move to the history of classical geopolitical theorization. Okay. Classical geopolitics claimed to be a scientific study of geographic condition of politics, and theorizing about the relationship between geography and security is a vital effort, very important effort. Modern geopolitical thinking appeared in late 19th century and early 20th century. But historians have shown, like the claim of the critical geopolitics, that some geopolitical analyses were not always neutral. They have implicit aim to help own country to pursue its national interests. So if you are German during the Nazi Hitler and you theorize about geopolitics, you want to advance German national interests. Okay. Also, when a scholar from United States, theorize about this, also they want to advance American interests. Also, the one very famous scholar from United Kingdom also, they want to pursue own national interests. Okay. That's the problem with this. Okay. That's why, because during Nazi Germany, Germans used a lot geopolitics to justify imperialistic foreign policy. Okay. Since then, up to 1970s, geopolitics fell into disrepute. Okay. People just hate geopolitics. Why? Because it was used by person who is very bad, in terms of doing politics to others, And now, people recognize that global political changes in 21st century are based on the geographical environment. Okay. For example, Iraq War. This Iraq War was done on the basis of geopolitical analysis. Okay. Russian aggression against Ukraine. Russian, later after against Ukraine and against many neighbors, I think, like Georgia also, and later Russia took over Crimea. Okay, that event show us that geopolitics is once more became important in policy making. Okay. Since then, the term geopolitics is mentioned daily in international news broadcasts. So the reasons of the re-emergence of geopolitics is because many foreign policy of great powers show their geopolitical appetite. Now, how geopolitics works? Geopolitics works like politics. Politics came up when two persons have problem and try to settle the problem politically. Okay. Geopolitics came up when two groups, have problem with something related to geography, related to geographical location, and they are aware of that. The importance of that location. Okay. Knowledge of each other is important because both actors who are opposing each other are assumed to act strategically. They don't act out of emotion. They act out of strategy. That's where geopolitics work. If you do that emotionally, that is not geopolitics. Geopolitics require you to be reasonable, to think in terms of reason and in terms of strategy. You have strategy. You know the goal to achieve. You know the means that you have. You know the ways that you want to do. The ways is strategy. Okay. The goal, the means, and the ways. This is what we discussed in the first program. Okay. So, for instance, if two people own part of a forest, it can be assumed that both people would be interested in how the other approaches fire safety. Suppose there was fire, suppose the forest caught fire, how would they do that? How do they deal with that? How do they tackle the issue? Okay. Why? Because forest fire, could harm everyone's land. So they need to see each other and think about what would they do if something happened. And then I think if they do that, I will retaliate this way. So like you play chess, if you move the pawn or you move the bishop, what would you do to react to that? Okay, that's the geopolitics. Both actors have to have the ability to react, to interact. If both actors keep to themselves, you have fire, you don't care about the other, you solve it by yourself, then there's no geopolitics. Okay. And if you care about yourself, you don't care about others, you deal the issue by yourself, you are not dealing with others, there's no geopolitics. But in certain conditions, countries need to pay attention to each other because they are related to each other. Okay. Very few countries who is able to settle everything by their own. people are interested in others because they are related to each other. Okay. If you are dependent on others or you are interdependent with others, you need to pay attention to each other. Okay. Suppose country A import a lot of goods made by country B. Okay. And yet, then you can expect that country B might have a reason to be interested in politics in country A. Why is it so? Because the guy bought my commodity a lot, and I'm happy with that. So I want to continue this kind of relation. Okay. So I can my country like country A or country B may pass laws to ensure that the two countries can get along together, and they are trading, continue, interact in terms of trade activities. Let me give you another example. I go back to the forest fire because I was interested in this. When forest fires in Indonesia polluted Singapore and Malaysia, the two neighbors, Singapore and Malaysia, were interested in the conduct of governance in Indonesia. Even Malaysia and Singapore sent the firefighters to Pekanbaru to help Indonesia dealing with fire. So the pollution developed into geopolitical issue. Pollution is no longer, environmental issue. It's a geopolitical issue because the air, the polluted in Riau, flew to Singapore and Malaysia and got problem there. So even environment issue can be geopolitical issue. Now we move to theories because like the first program when we discuss sociology, social anthropology and social psychology, we see that scholars try to answer the empirical questions, any question in abstract term, and that's to answer that question they create theories. Okay. Now, in geopolitics, we have three purposes in making theory or making hypotheses. First, geopolitics scholars come up with theory as an academic or contemplative research. Okay. The theory to explain the distribution of political power and influence over the earth at different historical periods, or to predict possible or probable future distribution. This is an academic activity. But some also making theory for the purpose of making policy. So to discover an alternative to a given status quo, now this is the condition. I would like to change it. What alternative to this condition? And then I try to theorize this. And that's the purpose I'm making theory, is that I want to change something. To change something, I need a new policy. That's why this second purpose is about policy making. Okay. The third is sometimes it is not really theory for academic purposes. This is not theory for making policy. This is theory to advance your interest. And it's like propaganda. So this kind of theory, that's like a propaganda to influence policymakers and their constituents in favor of some specific course of action. So I theorize about geopolitical phenomena because I want to advance my interest. So the third purpose of this theory is propaganda. This is what discussed by the critical geopolitics. Most of geopolitics theory are really propaganda. Like when during Nazi Germany created theory, most of them are propaganda to justify imperialistic foreign policy of Germany back then. The three independent variables, when you are theorizing, you need to relate cause and effect. You need to relate independent variable and dependent variable. You need to relate the cause and effect. See, what variable, what causes mentioned by geopolitical theories? There are three independent variables. First, geographical configuration. Okay, so Indonesia is exposed to this kind of challenge because the location of Indonesia. Okay, so the geographical configuration, because the natural resources are owned by Indonesia, because the demographic factors of Indonesia. So if you put this as your independent variable, and then you explain Indonesia behavior, that's what you theorizing geopolitics or position of Indonesia in geopolitics using geographical configuration. But sometimes this is not so popular now, but long time ago this is very popular. You use variation of climate in space and through time as an explanatory variable. A scholar named Ellsworth Huntington. It's not Samuel P. Huntington, this is another Huntington. Ellsworth Huntington said that climate determines the welfare of society. Okay, and he said that only people living in subtropic area, is very productive, and people living in a tropical area are not so productive, according to Huntington. So back then, the example he showed that the European nation, United States, this area, Now this is not important. This is not so popular. The third independent variable is access to needed raw materials. If you have easy access to raw material, you will be more geographically, geopolitically, you are stronger. Even if you do not your own natural resources, but you can have access to them. See, that's the issue. Especially when you have your own. See, so three hypotheses. First, that geographical configuration explain the geographic condition of country. Climate explain, the second hypothesis. Climate explain the poor condition or the well condition of a country. The third hypothesis is that if you have access to needed raw material, you will be stronger. So we have three kind of hypotheses concerning the geographic factors and political condition. Okay. Now the last part of this class is about the theories. The scholar who were responsible for making theory that are popular among the geopolitics students. The first is Admiral Alfred Thayer Mahan. He's a naval officer and also scholar, historian, strategist, and geopolitical theories. He started in 1890. He wrote many books in trying to educate American people and their leaders about the importance of history and geography. Okay, So history and geography impact a lot of study and practice of internationalism. His thesis basically is about the relationship between the political control of the sea and the impact of a powerful navy on states' foreign policy. So if you want to be influential in international relations, you need to develop powerful navy, because with a powerful navy you can control the sea and you control the transportation and any activity on the sea, and you will become a powerful country. That's what United States has done, following this idea. So sea power was necessary to facilitate trade and peaceful commerce, and strong navy is the essential ingredients, to build a sea power. The country with the most power would be one whose relative location was accessible and connected with long coastline and good neighbor. He was talking about United States, okay, and that's because he's American, okay. The second I would like to mention is the most important, the most popular one is the Harcourt Mackinder. He is a British, but actually he is Scot, so Scot British. Mackinder advocate of land power. So he disregard the man theory about sea power, because we see that he saw back then that the focus of warfare no longer on sea. It moved to the hinterland. Why? Because the new technology created railroad. Okay, so you can move your forces, your military, whatever, war machine by railroad. Okay, you don't need to go around the continent on the sea. This is the idea of Mackinder, and he said that because of this, who controlled the pivot area? He defined the pivot area as the one, spanning from, from the southern tip of Africa, the eastern tip of Asia, and the pivot area is around what now Russia. The northern and interior part of the Eurasian continent. Okay, this is what they call pivot area. He believed with the advent of railroad, this area would be pivotal, as it would be easy to defend and hard to conquer. This is the basis for his theory, that, his famous theory. Everybody, whenever they study geopolitics, always mention this. He who controlled the heartland controlled the world island. He who controlled the world island controlled the world. So remember that back then the idea is always, mondial, always about the world. And this is the map that he created to describe his theory, the heartland. You have the pivot area there. It was the inner crescent and the whole island. If you study geography, you might say that there are 7 continents in the world. Okay, and you know it: Africa, Europe, Asia, America, Australia, and others. But in geopolitics, according to Mackinder, you have only one big island. Okay, that span from Africa to the eastern part of Asia. The other is smaller island. So you have one big island and several lesser ones. That's the idea of Mackinder. And Mackinder also created the idea that in order to get the power, you need to think about the pivot area. And the idea about relating geographic facts to political condition also came up in Germany by the scholar named Friedrich Ratzel. I don't know how to pronounce it. Okay, he is natural scientist scholar, and he found inspiration in biology, in Darwinist evolutionary theories, to describe politics in terms of an organic theory. Okay. He believed that state is like an organism. Okay. Like an organism, this thing attached to the earth and compete each other to thrive. Like all living organisms, the state needs Lebensraum, need living space. This is idea that later manipulated by Hitler and others, yeah, to justify that Germany need Lebensraum. Germany need to take the land of others, Czechoslovakia, Poland, because German need it. Actually, he was a proponent of Mackinder's Heartland theory. Okay, but he developed a theory called pan-region theory. So he divided the world into 3 areas, 3 regions, and he put that Anglo-American, I have a map here, pan-region by Haushofer. The first is about the Anglo-America and its periphery, Latin America. The second is Europe, controlled by Germany, and its periphery is Africa and India. And Japan, in its periphery, Southeast Asia. This is the picture created by Haushofer in 1930s, to justify that Germany need to control others because Germany has a role to play in the world. The next scholar I would like to raise here, I want to tell you here, is Rudolf Kjellén. He is the one who invented the word geopolitics. Okay, before people did not use geopolitics as a word conveying the idea of the role and the influence of geography upon political life. Okay. Kjellén defined geopolitics as the theory of the state as a geographical organism or phenomenon in space. Okay. So he is like Mackinder as well as Haushofer. And the last theories I would like to raise is an American, Nicolaas Spijkman. He is a Dutch, born in the Netherlands and then become a citizen of the United States and taught in American University. He modified Mackinder's Heartland thesis. He proposed the global balance of power policy with the US acting as the balancer. This could be achieved if the US maintained a margin of superiority around the Rhineland. Remember the picture that depicted by Mackinder? You have the Rhineland, that is in Mackinder is called inner or marginal crescent. According to Spijkman, if United States can control the Rhineland, this is the Eurasian littoral, this is the reason why United States created alliance NATO in Western Europe and CENTO in the Middle East and SEATO in Southeast Asia in the 1950s. This is the idea provided by Spijkman and implemented by American government to contain Soviet Union back then. and it's called Rimland. Why is it important? Because Soviet Union could not use the Arctic coast because the climate, ice is not useful for sea lane. That's why United States is interested on containing Soviet Union because that way Soviet Union would not be able to go to warm water. That's why you always heard Soviet Union and Russia were interested in warm water harbor because the climate. The only exit route are through Baltic and Black Seas and by the overland route through North German Plain. So that's the problem with Russia. Speightman's Rimland theory was used by the West during the Cold War, and since 2014, Russia also is actively seeking to recreate Soviet Empire, and the West is once again using the Rimland geostrategy to isolate Russian heartland. This is a theory that, again, there are three purposes of theory according to what we discussed today. And I think some of them are real academic endeavor. You want to explain the political phenomena by using geographical factors, but sometimes it's propaganda, because you want to encircle, you want to contain Russia, you want to contain Soviet Union, you create this theory. Okay, so that is the idea about the geography and IR, and this way I'd like you to introduce the variety of social sciences that can help us, IR students, to study international phenomena better. Remember that we have IR in a capital I, capital R, that is the science, and I smaller case, I and smaller case R, international relation as the phenomena. And to study both, we need to pay attention to geographic information. Okay, that's all for today. Thank you very much.